My name is Carlos Roberto Hernandez, and I'm currently a junior at Cathedral High School. Ronald Reagan once cynically remarked, "Recession is when a neighbor loses his job. Depression is when you lose yours." Economic recessions are caused by a decline in GDP growth, which is itself caused by a slowdown in manufacturing orders, falling housing prices and sales, and a drop-off in business investment. The results of economic recessions are rising unemployment rates, which cause a slowdown in retail sales. This cataclysm all began in the United States as a result from the lack of regulation, and it became a vicious cycle which has created an abrupt 180-degree turn in many people's lives. This catastrophic event that is currently taking place has demolished many businesses and made a myriad of people lose their jobs. This lack of supervision and regulation of capital markets consists, among other things, poor credit quality, the creation of unregulated investment products, and many cases of fraud. Luckily, the first thing that President Barack Obama promised to the nation when he became elected president is that he will implement a set of innovative ideas that will rid the United States of the economic crisis that is weighing down on our shoulders. Some of the things that he will include in this effort to overwhelm this economic crisis include a housing plan, the stimulus, a small business fix, and a plan to ease the credit fix. One example of why we are facing this current economic crisis is poor credit quality. I view three crucial aspects of poor credit quality, which consist of mortgages, automobile loans, and credit cards. More than 8.3 million U.S. mortgage holders own more on their loans in the fourth quarter than their property was worth, as the recession cut home values by $2.4 trillion last year. First American Core Logic said, "There is way too much supply and not enough demand." U.S. foreclosure filings exceeded 250,000 for the 10th straight month in January, Reality Track Inc. reported, and payrolls plunged by 598,000, pushing the unemployment rate to the highest since 1992. According to the Labor Department, California lost more than $1.2 trillion in value last year, accounting for roughly half of the national decline in housing values. According to credit reporting agency TransUnion, delinquent auto loans reached 8.9% in the fourth quarter of 2008 when compared with the same period a year earlier. The states with the highest delinquencies are Mississippi, California with 1.46%, and Louisiana 1.37%. The banks and financial institutions lend out money to people with no financial resources to pay back the loans. Past due credit card payments are growing every day, and if consumers are not able to handle their credit card debt, millions of credit card accounts could be charged off by credit card companies. Back when home prices were increasing, consumers could rely on equity in their homes in case of emergency. Now that home prices are declining due to this economic crisis, more consumers are turning to their credit cards to help them, and this type of activity will eventually ruin them. A multitude of people use their credit cards instead of cash whenever they go out shopping or make any other common everyday purchases, and this type of activity lowers the consumer's total available credit, which used to fuel economic growth. This crisis can be seen as a snowball effect because when housing market suffers, so too will retail spending and credit card charge-offs. When you add these three factors together, lowering housing values, credit card charge-offs, and slow retail spending, you end up with a recession. Due to the lack of liquidity of the financial system, the banks stopped lending to businesses and individuals. This business could not continue growing and started firing employees. Those people without jobs could not keep on paying their auto and credit card loans. Another factor which displays the lack of regulation that led to this recession is that people are creating unregulated investment products. Two examples of this include hedge funds and derivatives. The first hedge fund was set up by Alfred W. Jones in 1949. Hedge funds were originally used to describe a type of private and unregistered investment pool that employed sophisticated hedging and arbitrage techniques to trade in the corporate equity markets. Hedge funds share cognitive functions with mutual funds because they both are pooled investment vehicles that accept investors' money and generally invested on a collective basis. Hedge funds lost 18.3% in 2008, which was their worst year on record as managers misjudged the severity of the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. Among the major investment strategies, equity hedge funds lost the most last year, an average of 26%, hedge fund research said. Derivatives are also an example of an unregulated investment product. There are three major categories of derivatives, which consist of credit, interest rate, and equity derivatives. Credit derivatives solely offer a false sense of protection and probably very little economic value, and they lead to the breakdown of a top company like AIG. Interest rate derivatives simply allow you to swap a fixed rate for a floating rate, but the problem in this is that we should not do this through a swap. Equity derivatives are said to alleviate risk, but they actually serve for one main reason: to speculate. Hedge funds and derivatives were financial products compounding the effects of the financial crisis. Lastly, there have been many cases of fraud that have also contributed to the recession. The two cases that are most widely known about are the cases of Bernard Madoff and Alan Stanford. Bernard Madoff confessed to a giant Ponzi scheme that cost his clients as much as $50 billion last month. This has made the hedge funds one of the biggest frauds in history. His New York-based firm was the 23rd largest market maker on NASDAQ in October, which handled a daily average of about 50 million shares a day. His firm specialized in handling orders from online brokers in some of the largest U.S. companies, such as General Electric Company and Citigroup Inc. Madoff was also sued by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and faces as much as 20 years in prison and a $5 million fine if convicted. In addition to this, Alan Stanford offers certificates of deposit that offer unusually high and consistent returns with many clients. He was charged by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for a massive fraud which involved $8 billion in certificates of deposits. This comes to show how people took advantage of the lack of regulation and supervision to commit fraud, therefore wiping out the life savings of innumerable people. By December 2008, employment was declining faster than the 2001 recession. The job loss for 2008 was the largest since 1945. As one can clearly see, the lack of appropriate and up-to-date supervision by the governing bodies of the traditional regulatory agencies, such as the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and the Office of Comptroller of the Currency, OCC, was the main cause of this liquidity crisis. This crisis also led to the $700 billion bailout and bankruptcies of Bear Stearns, AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, IndyMac Bank, and Washington Mule. Therefore, we are in desperate need of a more efficient and secure regulation system and a stricter supervision of financial activities. In today's global capital markets, a need for international regulatory entity is a must. Thank you for listening.